Hi, my name is Alyssa, and this is my Lsat journey. I started studying for the Lsat my junior year of college. I was taking a full course load, taking an internship, working another part-time job, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to study for the Lsat because I wanted to go straight into law school after I graduated. So I took my first diagnostic test. It was like in the 130s, something like that. And I started studying on Khan Academy. And it got very difficult, very overwhelming. I had no motivation to do it. I also was struggling with the fact that I felt like I wasn't smart enough to do it or to even go into law school. So I just kind of gave up. And I was like, I'm just gonna stick to something else. Graduated from college, went and did a full-time job at a domestic violence shelter where I actually helped women file for divorce, child custody. I also helped them with like criminal matters. So if there was a criminal trial or a criminal case going against their abuser, I helped them through that. But that kind of reignited my passion for going back to law. I am smart enough, I can do this, and I do want to help these women in the field of law. So started studying for the Lsat again, took a new diagnostic test, and that one I got like a 139. And I didn't really know where to start. I knew I didn't like Khan Academy from the first time I tried it. The explanations were very abstract and confusing and just didn't make any sense. So I got a Power Score trilogy set from one of my friends who was then going into law school when I started studying, and I started reading those, and I was like, this isn't really doing much. I need to like actually practice it. I'm more of a hands-on, I have to do it to learn it kind of person. So just reading about it in the Power Score Bibles wasn't really enough for me. But then I was looking for like a podcast to listen to. I'm a big podcast person too. And I found Thinking Lsat. And as I was listening to them, they kept broadcasting their program, Lsat Demon, and they were like, you should try it. If you like our podcast, you'll like our program. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a whirl. So I started to play around on their free version, and then I eventually dove in head deep into their live version. And from then on, I stuck with the Demon. So I used the Demon for about like 9-10 months of my studying, and that's where I saw my improvement coming from. So eventually I increased my score from like 139 to like the 150s, and I wanted to get a 160 at least, because my GPA was a 4.0, and I knew that the schools that I was looking at, 160 could get me a full ride scholarship, which is what I was hoping for. So I wanted to get a 160, but I couldn't break into the 160s for some reason. I was just like in a slump. So that's when I started working with Nicole on LR, because that was the one section that I was kind of struggling in that I wanted to really improve on. So I started working with Nicole on LR, started to do the boot camp, and that was when I saw my score increase again. I remember I hit my first 160, or when I first broke into the 160s, and I was like, this is unreal, this is not happening. And it was just a really amazing feeling. I felt like I was actually doing something and doing it, like I was succeeding. That being said, I moved my test about 4 times because my initial plan was to take the Lsat November 2020 and then go to law school 2021. And the more I listened to the podcast, the more I thought about my finances and my actual goals. I was like, I'm going to put it off a year and apply right when applications open so I can put my best foot forward and have the best chance of getting a scholarship. So I actually moved my test from November to like January to February to March to April. Like, I kept moving it until I felt ready. And I didn't really feel ready until April. April was when I broke into, April of 2021 was when I broke into my 160s. And since that was my goal score, I kind of waited and made sure it wasn't just kind of like I was on the high end of my score range. So I waited until my PTs were steady in the 160s, and that's when I took my test. I took my first one in June or July, one of the summer tests. Took it then, and I felt so confident. I knew I was gonna go in and I was gonna get my goal score, and I felt really confident in all the sections. Well, as confident as I did on my practice tests, but I was not worried at all. I even, like, before I started my test, I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm not shaking, wasn't worried at all. It went smoothly, and I completed it, and I went on with my day. Got my score back, got a 161, and I was like, yeah, that's good. But before I got my score back, I was still studying as if I was going to retake it just in case I didn't hit my goal score. And even when I got my goal score back, I was decided at that moment that I was still going to retake it. I had already signed up for, was it the August or September exam? And I just didn't feel like wasting the $200. I already had it. Worst case was I just used my 161, which was my goal score. So I was just going to take it again. I didn't really regret it at all. I probably maybe just regret that I didn't study as much as I wanted to, but I had my goal score. I knew I was going to get full rides based off of that. And so I went into the test still fine, still steady-handed, and I got back a 162. And that was really all I wanted. I just wanted a one score improvement because 1 point could be worth $10,000. So I'm very happy with my 162. And at that point, I was just kind of burnt out and was like, you know, I've got the scores, I've got the stats, I'm good to go. And so that was when my Lsat journey kind of ended and, well, shifted. I now tutor for logic games. I tutor students in that section. So my Lsat journey hasn't fully ended. I'm not completely done with the test, but like for myself, I am done with the test. I don't want to do it anymore. So as far as like my study schedule, what I did to prepare, so when I started studying, I focused more on games than anything. I learned it was usually the most toughest section and yet one of the easiest sections to improve on. So I spent like a full 2, maybe even 3 months on just focusing on games. And I mastered games by just repeatedly doing games, watching other people do games so I could strategize how I wanted to do my games. And I basically mastered it, and I saw my score go from 139 to like mid 150s automatically just from mastering that one section. Then from there, once I felt like I had that mastered, I decided to go on to LR. When I focused on these sections, I still did a little bit from the other sections, just not as heavy. So when I did LR, I would still do occasionally a reading passage or a timed LG section, but I did my main focus on the section that I was focusing on. And that was where I struggled in, was LR. I hit kind of like a road bump. I just wasn't going anywhere. And that was when I reached out to Nicole, signed up for her LR boot camp, and that was when I saw my score increase there. As far as like my actual study schedule looked like on a weekly basis, I took a PT every Saturday at the exact same time. Well, not the exact same time, but mid-morning-ish, early afternoon. I took a PT every Saturday, and I used Sunday as my rest day. And then Monday through Friday, at least one day in the week was dedicated to a timed section per section. So like Monday I did reading comp time section, Wednesday I did logic games time section, Friday I did an LR time section, and then I would review the next morning. So Monday, if I did a reading comp time section, I would do that. Then I would maybe do a game or two, maybe a couple LR questions. Then Tuesday in the morning, I would review that time section and then do some casual drilling, another game, maybe some LR questions, maybe a reading comp passage. And then Wednesday would go into a Logic Games time section, and then maybe like a reading comp passage, a couple LR questions, and then review that time section on that Thursday morning. And I did that because I worked full time. So I was working 40 hours a week. I was on call with the field that I was in. We had a lot of on calls. So even when I was off the clock, I really wasn't off the clock. But so what I did was an hour in the morning. So from 6 to 7, I would study, go to work, come home, and then from like 6 to 7 or 7 to 8, I would study again. So I only did a maximum of 2 hours per day, and that was to prevent burnout for myself. When I started, I would do full-blown like 4 or 5 hour study times, and I got burnt out within 3 weeks. So I scaled back significantly and started doing 2, maybe 3 hour study times during the week. And yeah, that was to prevent burnout, and that was just what worked for me. And splitting it up from morning and evening really helped me not kind of feel in this like, it broke up the time to where it didn't feel like studying, but I was being productive. I wasn't in this slump where I'm like, great, I have another hour and a half of studying. It was really just like an hour went by like that. If I were to give any advice for people who are studying for the Lsat, I would say my biggest advice is to make sure that you can have a sincere talk with yourself. So many students take the test before they're ready, or they keep pushing through, which I would totally recommend, keep pushing through and not give up. But sometimes you need to have a talk with yourself and be like, one, am I ready? Do I need to push this test off again? Because if you're not ready, it's not beneficial to waste an attempt on a test that you're not ready for. And then also to have the talk of, are you having a burnout moment? Because when I see students start to get frustrated or they start seeing their score go down, rather than thinking about where they are mentally, they're thinking that they aren't good enough for the test. They're not understanding it correctly. Something's wrong with the test even, and really it's just a burnout matter. So you really have to keep your mental stability in check before you can even go and succeed in the test. And sometimes it's really difficult to have that conversation. So making sure that you can have tough conversations with yourself, and if you can't, find someone who will have those tough conversations with you. So finding a study buddy, or using your significant other to kind of just vent about the Lsat. I can't tell you how many times I cried and quit to my significant other all the time. But it's nice to, one, release those emotions, and to have someone kind of bring you back down to reality, because when we're studying for the Lsat, sometimes we can lose ourselves, and we need someone to keep ourselves in check if you can't do that yourself. So that would be my elongated advice for someone. And then I also noticed that some students just have a really tough time with staying motivated. I would say my biggest advice for keeping your motivation in check would be burnout, like making sure that you're not burnt out, because I think what prevents some people from being motivated to do it is it almost feels like a job for them, a task. And so if you split it up in time and these easy chunks to do, it doesn't feel so daunting. Like if I was doing a 4-hour study session, that doesn't really sound super exciting to me, to spend 4 hours on a Saturday doing a study session. So I might not feel motivated to do it. But if I break it up into 30 or an hour time worth of chunks, then it seems less scary, and I feel more like, yeah, I can do that. I can do 30 minutes of LR questions and then go about my day. And then come back and maybe do another 30 minutes. So that would be my advice for staying motivated, is just making sure that it's not a job for you. Make sure that you actually enjoy it and that it's not super scary. So that is my LSAT journey video. I am happy to answer any other additional questions if you have any. Also happy to schedule any tutoring sessions if anyone is looking to get a logic games tutor. But yeah, that's me. Thanks. Bye.